Welcome back to Campfire Conversations. I'm your host, Pastor Ryan Tonetti, and I'm joined, as always, with my co-host, Chip May. How you doing, Chip?
It's a pleasure to be here, Ryan.
We are gathered around the virtual campfire with our good friend, Pastor Matt Popovits, down in Houston. Hey, Matt.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me on.
This is Extraordinary Circumstances, calls for an extraordinary campfire, and we're glad to have you as we're talking about how we as Christians and Christian leaders are responding to the coronavirus. And we want to be proactive and positive and thinking about how we can move forward in this rather than just rehashing all of the problems and the negatives that are associated with it. It's well documented. We all know about it, but as Christians, how can we continue to live and walk by faith? So we thought nobody better to talk to about that than to have our friend, Pastor Matt. So thank you.
Well, happy to be here.
Now, Ryan, I was thinking our other podcast, which doesn't exist, could be dumpster fire conversations, which would be the opposite of this. It'd be like, okay, let's panic, Mad Max, gangs are roaming the streets.
Right.
What do you do? But that's for a different time. So.
Yes, triage ministry. I mean, in some ways, we're kind of already there. But in the midst of that, it's, okay, well, how are we going to move forward? And then really the first question I want to ask is along those lines, in terms of being resilient, how can we as Christians grow in our resilience? That is, for this to be an opportunity not only to survive, but even to grow and strengthen in our faith and in our churches, for the bonds of community to be strengthened through the midst of this. What do you think are some of the keys to resiliency in the midst of this crisis?
Well, I think the first thing that comes to mind when you said the word resilience was the need for rest. So for me, resilience flows from rest. If I'm going to be strong for the long haul, it's because I've also taken the time to rest and load up for the journey ahead. And so I think one thing to look at is kind of as a positive of this is that there is kind of forced upon all of us in this COVID-19 thing, a forced Sabbath and a forced rest. Like, no, you can't leave the house and go to work. No, you have to sit on the couch and spend more time with the kids. And we can fight against that, or we can kind of lean into that and say, look, I have more opportunity than perhaps I had before to slow down, to rest and refocus, maybe, to sit and just be silent, or to dwell and to rejuvenate, maybe. And if I have those opportunities, I should lean into them and trust that that's then going to prepare me for whatever is new and difficult and daunting in this season, or for whatever big thing comes after this season. So I think part of being resilient in this moment and for whatever lies ahead is finding the opportunity to rejuvenate in this moment
and to rest.
I think there's a Sabbath kind of in essence kind of being forced upon all of us.
How telling is it with our culture that we need a pandemic for us in order to actually take a break? Because we'll look at every opportunity. How can we optimize it? How can we hack it? How can we, use it to be more productive? And here it's being foisted upon us. No, you need to just chill out. I mean, like you say, it's a forced Sabbath, and maybe something really salutary about that.
Yeah, like I think of like just the last couple nights. Like now, granted, like we've had to retool how we do ministry here over the last couple weeks. Like many people in ministry have done. Like we have to rethink everything, and that's led to a lot of work for me and for my staff. But there's also been still a ton of moments, more than typical, where I've been at home with my kids, sitting at the dinner table, even though I try to have dinner with them every night. So we've played more board games. We've had more conversations. We've played more Mario Party, the four of us, than we ever have. Mm-hmm. And that's been a really good thing. And so like I'm choosing to see that as kind of a forced reconnection with my family and a gift from God. And I'm going to let that be a good thing and be a rejuvenating thing for me as much as I can.
Mm-hmm. You used an interesting phrase there. You're choosing to see that. And as Christians, it's kind of like, it is what it is. We've got a pandemic here. This is bad in a lot of ways. But how can we choose to see some potential for positives in the midst of it? what are some of those positives that you see potentially emerging for us as Christians, as believers, for the church, that we might see materialize as we work through this time of crisis?
Well, so I think that the first thing that I would say is that we have to remember that faith is both a gift you receive and can't earn, and a muscle you flex and have to grow. It's like both of those things. So like faith in the promises of Jesus Christ is this gift that God gives and instills and stirs in me. I can't earn it. I can't create it. He just gives it, right? But then it's also this thing I live out, and a muscle I flex, and a lens through which I choose to view the world. Mm-hmm. And so this is a time where people who have received the gift of faith in the promises of Jesus Christ are forced to they have the opportunity rather to put on that faith lens and to flex those muscles of faith and choose to see that God is sovereign over this, that God is doing his redemptive work in and through all of this, and that our job is to be people who wear those lenses and choose to see it, and then also, as an act of our sanctification, our living out of our holiness, we choose to participate in it and find redemptive moments in it. So like that's kind of the underlying like theological foundation of this, I think. But then, so like for me as a church leader, like I and just as an everyday follower of Jesus, like I have to get up every day and be like, all right, this could blow my mind and create intense frustration for me and deep anxiety for me. But I have to make a choice today to be like, God is giving me as an individual and our church corporately an opportunity to discover strengths we didn't know we had, to flex muscles that are rarely used. And I believe that unless he's preparing us for the imminent return of Christ, that he's preparing us for a future season where we're going to need all the new skills and all the new practices and all the new habits he's forcing us to develop right now. And so I think he's forcing us into an appreciation of real, true community. He's also forcing us into the technology and resources we're going to need to stay connected in a disconnected world, and perhaps in a world where corporate worship is not quite as easy as it used to be going forward, or not as valued by the culture as it used to be in previous ages. He's also forcing us to rethink the basics of how we do everything as Christians. As a Christian leader, how I get people to participate in worship of God when I don't have them right in front of me, and what does it mean to worship as a Christian? What does it mean to be in praise and to receive God's gifts? Like we have to rethink all these things, and it's been really fun for me. Like this week, we had Easter planned. Like I pride myself on being a guy who's like, we're ahead of the game. We've got everything planned. We had Easter like in the can. We knew exactly what we're going to do. And now we're going to have to do Easter completely online, and none of what we planned is going to work.
Right.
And so we just had earlier today, like a really fun, creative meeting where we said, how do we take the things that people need to experience at Easter and equip them to experience it on their couch without us in the room? And just thinking through that was so much fun. And I firmly believe now that if we have to do Easter online, it's going to be this year, at least for us, it's going to be a richer, more fun experience than it would have been otherwise. And so, I don't have a long list of ways in which I think this is or will be redeemed for our good. I just have this overwhelming sense that it's going to be. And I'm kind of discovering that along the way. Like for example, in our Easter service, we're going to do this thing where we're asking as many of our people as will take part to take a selfie video of themselves saying, he is risen indeed, hallelujah. And then we're going to piece all those things together and show them in our live stream, so that when we say he is risen, and then people are supposed to say he is risen indeed, we cut to a montage video of our people from all around Houston saying that, and they get to see themselves proclaim the resurrection of Jesus. Like that to me is a way better idea than what we were just going to do before. So I think that's awesome. I think that's fantastic. So I just like the redemptive anticipation of this.
Going back to that kind of framework, that was really interesting about this, the idea that our faith is something that is unearned and a gift, but also a muscle that we flex. In recent days, for me, it's been kind of like this sort of sense, like everything prior to this, in some respects, was a practice. where you kind of like, not that you're going through the emotions, but you're thinking through stuff, but you're not really maybe living it, except for maybe some really tough points in your life. And then now it's sort of like, I am reading scripture and singing hymns in a way that I hadn't in a while. I caught a video of 1517 doing Abide With Me, the hymn, and different people singing it, and that got me into that hymn, and just reading those words and then singing those words as a family. And I thought, man, this is so, I mean, I know that hymn, but to read those words in this context meant a lot to me.
Yep.
And I feel like, and it's maybe that sense of flexing those muscles and using those muscles to kind of have a different view of the world. And it's sort of like, the rehearsal's over, this is the game, and what does it look like for us to hold on to the promises of God and to flex these muscles now is it's enlivening, but it's also challenging. What I mean?
Yeah, well, it's like so no one can go on autopilot right now in terms of expressing their faith, because the autopilot's not allowed, right? The things you just normally did as a parishioner or normally did as a ministry leader, you can't do any of those things. So everybody's forced to just re-engage and rethink, which is a really good thing ultimately, right? And we are lucky as white men in the West to have experienced very few hurdles to our hallelujahs, so to speak.
Nice.
But there are people who have gone before us and who have been around us throughout time, who've had a lot of hurdles to their praise, a lot of hurdles to get into church. And they've had a deeper and richer appreciation of what that means than we've had to have. And granted, being quarantined in a really nice home with high-speed internet is nothing compared to true persecution. Not going to make that comparison. But we've never had to experience some hurdles like this to just getting to express our faith. And I have to believe it's going to be good for us.
Yeah.
I have to believe it's going to be good for us.
You got to speak for yourself, though. We're in northern Michigan. Our high-speed internet is not nearly as high-speed as so we are struggling. No,
you've got 1G, not 5Gs.
Right. But I mean, as I've been reflecting on this and thinking about it, I came across in my Lutheran book of prayer, which is from, 100 years ago or something like that. And it's got a prayer for epidemics. And it occurred to me, maybe what we've been living in terms of just the comfort and the calm and the convenience that we've been experiencing for the last however many years and decades in America, that's more like the exception. Whereas living under whether it be famine and pestilence or drought and war and oppression, those are more the rule, both historically and even in many parts of the world right now, as you kind of alluded to. So
yeah,
is this a pep talk, Ryan? Because that is that your pep talk to us? Is that now is the new norm? Is plagues and pestilence?
I don't know. I mean, it could be. And I think you bring up a great point in terms of now, okay, the practice is over. This is the game. There is a part of this where it's like, others have called it a kind of apocalyptic moment, not in like an Armageddon way, but just it's sort of revealing how well has preparation really been for us to be faithful.
Yeah, it's a sea change moment. I think for decades to come, if not longer, we're going to look back at this and go, well, that's a moment where everything changed on a lot of fronts. But in particular, I think it changed a lot for people of faith. I think, one of the things that hit me, and you might think this strange or cheesy, whatever, but I was doing a bit of reading about the early church and the importance of the conversion of Constantine and how that changed everything. And I thought, well, who is it that holds all the power now that we need to pray for their conversion so that the whole world can re-engage with the gospel?
We already got Bieber. I mean,
what's that?
We already got Bieber and
Bieber, but like, so for me, it was like, all right, so everybody's got a live stream through Facebook and everybody's got to order things on Amazon. Like, what if like Mark Zuckerberg came to faith? And like, what if Jeff Bezos came to faith? Yeah. Like, would that be the new version of like Constantine's conversion? And it changes the whole world in terms of how the whole world can see and access the Christian faith. I don't know, but it has me just thinking about stuff like that, and I wasn't thinking about stuff like that before.
Right. No, it's true. I mean, I think you're spot on that. And Chip and I have already said as much in the last couple of days, like this is going to change everything. And for our kids, they're always going to remember it. I mean, we're making diaries now and journals because we want to remember this stuff. And I think part of what's challenging right now is just not knowing how long is this going to go on? How long are we going to be living under this moment? Which that's for me, I guess, as a pastor, for you as pastor, and Chip as a camp director, a leader, what do you feel like are some of the questions and things that we as leaders need to be thinking about right now? As, okay, we are in this moment, the sea change moment, and we don't know exactly what lies ahead. What are some of the questions that you're asking, or some of the things that you're thinking about in terms of how we want to move forward and how we want to lead God's people going forward?
Yeah. So the questions I've been asking myself is, and I've really had to wrestle with this, like, have I up to this point equipped my people for a moment like this, to live their faith outside of these walls? And I would have to say the answer is no, because it's been very Sunday central, like just show up and we'll give you the goods, which is what Sunday's about. But all of a sudden I felt this urgency to be like, I don't have enough resources out there for them to nurture their own faith and for them to draw from the wellspring of the promises of Jesus Christ when I'm not around to lift the cup to their lips. I have to better equip them for this. And so I think that question is, how am I equipping my people for this particular reality right now, but then going forward, because this is not the last time this is going to happen. Right. Once you press a button like this, people know where the button is and it's going to get pressed again. So I think we have to be ready for that.
So I think it's kind of a post-mortem in a way, or an evaluative. Yeah. How have we done to this point? But then next it's turning and looking ahead to how am I going to go going forward? How can I equip them better for future?
Yeah. Change? Yeah. How do I equip them right now for this? But then how do I equip them to live? I now feel a more palpable sense of, like, as a pastor, I'm supposed to equip them for when stuff like this happens. They're already resourced and already have kind of the lens of faith ready in front of their eyes to flip it down and look right through it. And so the need to do that, but then also, like, there's an opportunity as a leader to say, when this moment passes by, what do I want to keep doing as a leader that I started doing now? And what needs to never come back from this moment that I was doing prior to this, that I had to stop and that needs to stay dead? There's that opportunity
washing
in
my
moments
hands.
Like this.
That's it. No, sorry.
Washing my hands. I never need to do that again. But there's an opportunity in kind of like crisis like this. That's where you say, I'm going to discover things that I need to keep doing once the crisis is over, and I'm going to discover things I was doing that weren't essential during the crisis and shouldn't be essential after it. I want as a leader, and I want people around. Let's ask those questions.
Yeah.
And because that's then part of how you get stronger as a result of this. But I think families can answer that too. Like, what were we doing before this that we should just not, when this is done, what do we not want to start doing again? Yeah. And what did we discover in this that we want to keep going? Like, if families are asking that question, that's a good thing. Like, we need to play more Mario Party at my house. We need to put the phone down a little more. We need to have some planned quarantine together. Like, we need to do that.
Yeah. And do it at Camp Arcadia is what I'm hoping for. But I think yes. for us and camp, it's like, I mean, so much of what we're forced to do at this point, to distance ourselves from friends, that kind of stuff, is what camp's not about, right? Camp's about coming together, but being together with your family is what Camp Arcadia is about. So this sort of sense that people are hopefully experiencing some of that togetherness that they're having, that intimacy that they have at camp, at home, obviously in a different way. But I think we are trying to do what we can to help people kind of experience that, and sort of understand what is it about the Camp Arcadia experience that that is so meaningful. I think it's becoming like more like a more obvious, I guess, the contrast, we can't see anybody, we can't worship together, we can't eat meals together, to go to camp and to be with other people. I mean, everyone's going out and they're out in nature, which is great. And we're doing that a lot. I'll probably be in the best shape of my life by the end of this, but
not saying too much.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, exactly. But it's not the same that it is worshiping on the chapel on the beach as the sun sets, and so, my hope is that not that people just become so thirsty for Camp Arcadia. I mean, I hope that's true, but they also can quench that thirst a little bit now with doing some practical things with their family and enjoying and kind of leaning into this moment with each other, because like you said, this is a real opportunity,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So as you people have talked about kind of that triage perspective, and as you are looking at the different vocations that you have as pastor, as father, as husband, and some of those things that you said, we can just stop, and even when we get through this, we don't want to keep doing it. Matt, what for you are some of those things that have risen to the top and you realize these are the most essential? These are the things that right now have to happen, whether it be in the church or in the home. And what are some of those things that you're like, when we get through this, I mean, still it's early, small sample size, all those kinds of things.
Yeah.
This is absolutely going to have to keep continuing.
Yeah. So first in my home, like I mentioned before, we've been playing more games and having more conversations. And it has become I've become painfully aware of the fact that it's taken a pandemic for me to appreciate that. And so I want that value to continue for me. Right. I think I'm a good dad and a good husband. I think I prioritize things pretty well, but the fact that it's been even better in a moment of national crisis tells me it could be better when there's not a national crisis. And so I want that to continue. As a church, it's brought to the fore to me that my role as a pastor is to deliver the gifts of God where the people are gathered, but to equip the people of God to enjoy those gifts when they are scattered. And because I quite literally can't go to your home. I quite literally can't have you come here. So like I have to spend the time that I do have equipping you to feed yourself and to appreciate the gifts of God when I'm not around to whisper in your ear. And so like that fresh urgency for me has been really, really clarifying, because I can get caught up in so many weeds here. And creating a sense of self-importance with some kind of false urgency behind it. But when all of a sudden it was like, well, none of our Sunday school classes can meet, and church can't happen, and confirmation is canceled, but people still need to experience and express their faith. How's that going to happen, Pastor? And I was like, oh crap. I don't know. And so I had to get really creative really quick. And like the fact, like there has been a joy and a clarity in answering that question. And so that has to remain for me, like putting the emphasis on equipping people. It sounds so simple. Other preachers and ministry leaders are gonna be like, that's been the job all along, idiot. And I'll be like, I know, but I didn't know that. I just didn't know. But now I know, and I want that to stay a focus for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us as pastors, especially, we can't kick ourselves too much because we've been doing what we've been given to do, and maybe some of these things we just haven't been, like you say, we haven't been forced to think through it. But as for those of us coming out of the Lutheran tradition, especially, I think of how well we have been equipped for this, and we have it within our own resources. I mean, this was Luther's vision all along with the small catechism, right? I mean, this is how the head of the household is going to teach these things. Our job all along was not necessarily to be doing this job for parents, for families, for individuals, but helping to equip fathers to teach their children, for children to have that word lodged in their heart so that they're able to continue to walk in the ways of the Lord. So it's kind of bringing us back to what we, like you say, what we ought to have been doing all along, and helping to restore that sense of, oh yeah, this is what's most important. This is what we need to prioritize.
Yeah. Like, so I'm spending Thursday on Zoom calls with different lay leaders that we've asked to host virtual Bible studies. And half of them have never done it before. And so I'm going to do a Zoom call with training them to lead a Zoom call and a Bible study so that they can gather up their friends on Zoom and lead Bible studies. And like equipping a leader to lead other people in Bible studies has been like, I love that. That's going to last well beyond me once I get hit by a bus, right? Like that's going to last well beyond that. That's how I plan to go, by the way, Ryan.
Wow. Things got dark here.
I'm not going to dart out in front of it, but look, accidents happen. Or like, so we can't do confirmation in person right now. And I'm not sure that by the time May rolls around, we'll be able to do confirmation in person, to be honest with you. So we're going to host parents and their kids we're going to host parents and kids in these Zoom calls, and we're going to talk about the faith with parents and kids all on one call and give them some things to do in their home with each other. Like that's exciting to me.
It was really, the whole thing has just been a ruse to somehow get parents involved in confirmation also. So
man, I'm behind that. It's worth it then.
Yeah.
Cool. We'll end as we always end with what are some of the kind of books or podcasts, or what are things that are sustaining you right now? And it can't be like the CDC website or John Hopkins site. So what are some of the things that are kind of been helpful for you?
Hold on, and I'll grab it so that I can actually show you. I know this is going to be audio and video, so hold on one second.
So he is wearing pants. That is good to know. I did have that question.
That makes one of us. Good.
All right, here we go. So what I've been reading, believe it or not, and really, really enjoying, it is a reprint of the 1970s like ELCA catechism, written by I think it was Ferdy and another dude.
Oh, show it.
It's Free to Be.
Yes, I love that book.
Free to Be.
Yes.
And it's just a small catechism, and it's written for middle school kids, but which means it's right at my level. But also just the phrasing and the language that they use in teaching, the perspective they use in teaching the catechism is really, really different than what I've always used, and really, really encouraging and empowering. So I've been working my way slowly through this, kind of like almost devotionally, and just really enjoying it. Really, really enjoying it. From like a professional perspective, like I've been just finished this book. This is a book called Excellence Wins by Horst Schulze, and he's the guy who founded the Ritz-Carlton Hotel, and very famously had all of his employees able to recite the mission and the vision of the organization. And he's also a follower of Jesus, and so he kind of instills some principles and values from his faith in there. Very simple, but very clarifying and empowering book for leaders of like how to help everybody in the organization swim in the same direction. And so I've been reading that, and I've just finished it and enjoying that.
Cool. What are you reading, Ryan?
What am I reading? You're going to think I'm crazy, but I've waited till this moment to start going through the Harry Potter books. And so I'm in the first of the Harry Potter books, enjoying that. And then at the other end of the spectrum, I'm reading that big fat tome Dominion by Tom Holland that a lot of folks have been talking about. I forget what the subtitle is exactly, but something like How Christianity Remade the West or something like that.
Yeah.
So,
I think it's How I'm Smarter Than You Because I'm Reading This Book, I think is what the subtitle is.
Exactly. I was waiting for this moment to share that I was on page 13 in the book.
Right. That's Tom Holland, who's the new Spider-Man, right? The young British actor.
Yeah. I'm a polymath. Wow.
The dude is doing everything.
Just brilliant, that kid.
I am reading the Psalms a lot, actually, but I am also reading David Brooks' book, Second Mountain, that I borrowed from you, Ryan. I don't know if you know that.
That's on my list. Is it good?
It is, and it's exceptionally important, I think, now, because he talks about basically, he talks with a lot of people who found joy through suffering or through difficult times or through found a calling during those times. So, I started reading it before this, but it's really kind of hitting it home. So I just appreciate his work so much. And Super. Well, Matthew, thank you. Matthew, wow, that's very appropriate. Matthew.
Sounds like my mom.
Matthew, thanks for joining us, Matthew. No, thank you for joining us. Blessings to you and your family and your work down there in Houston. So stay safe, stay smart. Stay smart? Okay, get smart.
Stay home.
Yeah,
Stay
definitely
home.
get
What is
smart.
it? Wash your hands. There's so many instructions now. So
Yeah, wash your hands, don't touch your face, and enroll at Camp Arcadia. Those are the 3 things everybody needs to do right now.
there you go. Awesome.
All right. Thanks, Matt. God bless.
Hey, thank you guys. Talk to you soon.